making you a sandwich.
Big. Woo, big.
Big? All right, we'll make a big one.
Big bear.
Big bear.
No, true. Oh, there.
We're glad you're home, honey.
Big bear, chase. Big bear, chase.
What does he say?
What? Big bear, chase me.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bricked Pit, the podcast you didn't know you didn't need, where we talk about unserious things seriously. I am Adam, and joining me as always are my two favorite people in the world, Josh and Jason. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for the solo introduction so that we can associate people's, with our voices and names.
We are 3 years, 640,000 hours into this. If they don't know who we are by now, they'll never figure it out.
To our newest listener, thanks for listening to us. We're a podcast where we talk about film and television.
That was Josh speaking there on the mic for those of you who are new. And Jason was the curmudgeon you heard earlier. So
let's assume that at some point someone new is going to listen to this.
As Josh mentioned, we do like to talk about film and pop culture, and this week I thought it'd be really fun to look at, it's not really a genre, I guess, as much as it is just a theme of film, and encompasses a lot of movies that I really like. And the idea for this originated from originally watching this rise in documentaries coming out, reality television in the late 2000s, mid 2000s, where it's a guy in the woods fighting for his life, allegedly, but in reality, he's probably staying at the La Quinta Inn on when the cameras go off.
Fighting for his life 6 hours a day before he goes to the Ramada.
Right.
So you're talking about Bear Grylls is what you're saying.
Basically, right? Or, Cody London or whatever that.
I still like Bear Grylls.
He's a charismatic guy, right?
It's a TV show.
Right, yeah, you could take it for the spirit it was or whatever.
Here's mistake one. You believe something you saw on television and feel deceived. Like, welcome. Have you watched us or listened to us? It's not real. None of it.
So in that vein, it's what I wanted to do was look at movies that involved man versus nature, the conflict where man or woman, I guess, is stuck in this, like, the weather or the environment or the animals or whatever are all kind of the other character that's conspiring against.
Use the shorthand of nature.
Yeah. Yeah, nature.
The flora and fauna are antagonistic to the protagonist. In all of this, no one even brought up Jack London. So
yeah, it was on.
Shame on you.
No, the other one that was on my mind.
Also in this group, and you didn't bring up Jack London.
That's fair.
I hate Jack London. So that's why I didn't bring him up. I didn't want to drag him through the dirt, punk.
Josh, when you point your finger at people, 3 fingers are pointed back at you.
White Fang is also pointed at you. That dude had one story and stretched it out over 8 novels. I'm in Alaska. I get it. Alaska's rough. Did you drink some whiskey? Wow, fantastic. You and Hemingway are great.
The other great book, not as good movie that I didn't. One of my favorite books of all time as a kid was My Side of the Mountain.
Yeah. A terrible movie. I think it was a Disney movie.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if it was, but it had that feel to it. And it was just a bad adaptation. But
yeah.
So I didn't want to talk about the movie. But the book, I don't know about either of you, but I definitely went through I could do that phase of my life where I was like, I could live in the mountains all by myself and, I could get out of the city and go.
I wouldn't have a bedtime.
Right.
I'll get into why I didn't really. I mean, I read My Side of the Mountain like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Thought it was really cool. I think it was what the Into the Wild guy thought his life was going to be like.
Yeah, Chris McCandless.
But that
I also didn't. I don't think any of us chose that movie for.
Well, we can talk about it because
I think we already have previously.
Yeah, that's fair too. I think as well.
I hate that dude more than Jack London.
What it means is Jack London hates that dude, but Josh hates that dude more than Jack London.
We had a hate contest in a way. It was like the guy digging the tunnel versus the steam engine. Was it John Henry? But it was a hate contest. You can't beat me, man.
It was in the form of slam poetry. It was.
Now that's a movie.
Jack London and Josh doing
that's
slam poetry about Chris McCandless. Yeah, I'd probably watch that, honestly. It's a pretty simple concept. I mean, there's not a lot to talk about. Usually, if you're a frequent listener to this, I try to give a history of this kind of thing or whatever, and there's really not much to talk about. I mean, the Mountain Man aspect movie, which was kind of the impetus for it, and both of my movies kind of reflect that. There's not a whole bunch in that genre, and they really kind of had their moment in the 70s, notwithstanding a brief revival recently. But it's different than like the Western. It's different than the cowboy versus the Indian type movie. And the reason I wanted to encompass all of the weather and all of the nature and stuff, and I'm glad you guys chose interesting things, is because I felt like that sort of vision gave us an opportunity to kind of explore new movies that we might not fit otherwise.
Yeah. Well, I think the premises of it is typically falls into like accidental or intentional.
Yeah.
And I think there's a pretty big divide on that because like Alive, like rugby players eat their dead, kind of stuff. They didn't want to do that versus some of these things like Into the Wild. That was intentional.
That was a choice he made.
I don't know. I think ultimately I kind of like the accidental better because hubris is a big theme through these because ultimately it's man's need to conquer nature, and
why did you climb Everest? Because it's there.
It's a very self-centered, or at least internal locust of locust, not locust. The internal locust is that's my horror film I've been working on. In my cicada series.
It's almost done. He started it 13 years ago, so it's right about.
And 2 scripts are coming out at once now. So.
Also called A Brood, but some other ones that we didn't choose was The Edge, similarly focused thing.
Meh movie.
Yeah, mad movie, yeah.
That was the weirdest U2 documentary I've ever seen.
And then one that I didn't have listed here, but you were talking about like the taking on the thing. I also thought about like those mountain climbing, like free. What's that? Oh, crap, I can't think of
Free
it.
Willy,
Free Base,
Free Base. Yeah,
I think that's
that might not be
cocaine,
the name.
I think.
Yeah, but the one where the guy's like free climbing without any gear.
Yeah.
And it was a documentary, and I didn't do that because I didn't want to do true stuff. I didn't want to do pure documentary stuff. So that's why I didn't put that on my list. But if you had, I wouldn't have said no.
Yeah, I wish you would have. Well, good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care. I'm not like Jason. I'm not a rules guy. I just want to talk about movies. I really the lens through which is less important to me.
Okay, well, let's talk about the prequels then, because we're not following rules.
That's fine.
Talk about life surviving Tatooine.
Jason will edit it all out because you can't have one guy who's like the free spirit hippie without having the guy who's also like
I would never describe you that way.
I have always been described that way. I am a
by who?
The understanding of what a hippie is very convoluted.
I'm the Chris McCandless of podcasting, is what I am.
I won't argue that.
We're waiting for you to die too.
Yeah, you're dying right now too. This is your journal.
I just came to this podcast with these short handwritten notes on Post-its.
I got a bag of rice. I'll be fine in this podcast.
Yeah. So is the podcast the bus? Is that what the vehicle is that I'm dying in?
I think the podcast is Alaska.
Okay. Yes. Every piece of it's trying to kill me, is what you're saying. There is no safe harbor. It's all.
Each episode is its own bus, metaphorically, for you to die in.
Fair enough. All right, Josh, why don't you get us cracking?
I want to talk about a documentary, a real thing, about a real man fighting against the wild. This is 1996's Project Grizzly. This was a documentary by the Canadian Film Board following obviously a Canadian. Rewatching it, I have different views than when I first watched it, which I think is good. It means that I'm changing. Like Jeff Goldblum in The Fly.
Did you watch it new when it came out? And this is like your first time revisiting it?
I did. Yeah. Well, no, I have it on DVD, so I've revisited it several times.
Okay.
It was a birthday present, actually, from my wife one year. This guy, Troy, it's like Tertucci, or I can't pronounce his last name. He's this really eccentric character who was attacked by a bear. He's not like a biologist or anything, but he's decided he's going to study bears, figure out why he was attacked, other than he was in bear country. But he's terrified of bears because he was attacked by a bear, right? So that's quite the conundrum. So he builds this elaborate suit that he can barely walk in to protect himself from the bears that he wants to watch and figure out why they tried to kill him. He's basically a Canadian redneck that starts out with like hockey pads and stuff. And to test his suit, he you remember like the log trap from Return of the Jedi?
Yeah,
he does that on himself with his drunken redneck friends, and they hit him with their truck, like going like 50 miles an hour, and he
weld like the frame and put a mattress on the front.
Yeah, and he throws himself off these deep embankments, and he's like, I'm all right. And he's like, but the whole time, he can barely move.
Well, it's taken a while, but like I say, yeah, finally we got there. It's about time.
Yeah, because you and I have talked a couple of other times.
Yes, we have, a couple other times over the years.
But this is the suit.
Yeah, this is the suit. $100,000 later and 7 years research, we finally got to a suit capable of doing what we want with regards to grizzly research.
Now describe it for me, Troy. How big is it?
Oh, well, I'm 5'8", and when I close myself inside the suit, I'm looking at about 7'2". That's the height of it. The weight, 147 pounds, which is relatively light for its protection capabilities, and it's extremely large. I mean, the head itself, the outer head, there's like two chambers to it. The outer head is, you're probably looking at 2 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet.
It's funny because, and what's originally I liked it because you're kind of laughing at this guy because it's he's just nuts, and he's 110% into building this bear-proof suit instead of just not going around bears.
It feels like based. I'm not obviously seeing this, so based on the description so far, I'm hearing Tiger King meets Jackass. That's
yes. This is long before Tiger King, but it's in that same vein.
Okay.
I mean, it's utterly bizarre. What my takeaways this time were, from a documentary standpoint, it's interesting because this guy, he's got this cadre of characters around him, much like Tiger King. They don't really go into depth about them, and I wish they would have. How does this guy have this many close friends? Because he's are they all crazy?
Drive a truck into him,
right?
Swing logs into his chest.
At one point, he's walking around this recreation of an Iroquois village that he offhandedly mentions his dad built by hand. Just because. What I like about it now is it very much is a slice of life of the human condition. Now, it may be kind of heightened because this guy is such an eccentric, but I thought about how this guy's life was defined by that one event. It's a big event. I'm not blaming him. If I got attacked by a bear, that's probably, but it framed his whole life. Everything, every example, they see a truck or something, he'd be like, I bet a bear could turn that over. And why would you? Why would that even come into play? That's about 4 bears away from me. like his whole life. It's strange that people do get in these events happen that they can't get past. And like everybody has to some extent those things, and some people it like manifests itself in like, I'm going to build a bear suit. I found it interesting in that respect that it is still like as wild and kind of funny as it was. It's still an examination of all of us, like in our human nature. Apparently, Troy, who died not too long ago in a car accident, sadly, didn't like the documentary because he said it made him look crazy and it kept investors from. He had made other inventions that were actually worthwhile. He made this fire retardant paste that was like super effective, and then he just pour all that money back into the bear suit. But I'm like, dude, people thought you were crazy because, like, not from what the documentary says, the things you were saying and doing in the documentary. Like, so there's
context would have made it worse.
Yeah, there was I envy his blissful unawareness of self because I'm like the total opposite. Like, as soon as we get done recording this, I'm going to lay in bed and be like, oh my God, I can't believe I said all that stuff. It's so stupid. This dude gets up every day.
If you were a carefree hippie like me, you wouldn't have all that anxiety and tension. And
this guy's tromping through the forest in like a fringe jacket, like he's Daniel Boone, but he's also got like a red beret on, like he's one of the guardian angels in New York City in the 70s. He's got a big Bowie knife. Like, he looks like a fool. In his head, he's like top performing human.
Well, he is super smart. Like Josh said, he has all these other patents. He's funneling that money back into his bear suit. And Josh mentioned, like, the first one was just hockey pads. The thing about that is, eventually, like, the stuff he started inventing, like, the pads that the NHL started using.
I see.
Are based off of his patent.
Yeah.
Like, that's where he was getting money to pay to do all this stuff. And like the suit that he's testing by the time the documentary starts is like the 4th version. The Ursus Mark IV is what he called it.
Oh, it's funny, Ursus.
Yeah. So it's worthwhile. The other thing that struck me too is that it's also like kind of like with this Iroquois village. It's almost folk art. And he does. I don't think he realized, because there's this in North Mississippi. There's this guy, preacher, that built a castle for his wife. Called it Margaret's Groceries. It's in horrible disrepair now, but it was just this old preacher guy promised his wife he was going to make a castle, and they owned a grocery store. He hand built this like turrets and like took buses and stuff and tried to create a castle for her, decorated with Mardi Gras beads and stuff. And you see that a lot in like folk art, that there's just like this deep desire to create something. He just channeled it into the bear suit. And I'm endlessly fascinated as to why. Like, what was the end goal?
There's like things he's talking about. One of the main things he wanted to do is he wanted to go into a bear cave during hibernation and like take samples and all that. And there's actual like scientific reasonings to do that. Like, that could actually help understands bears, hibernations, and all that kind of stuff. And just there's actual real world stuff that can be used for.
But does it have to be a person? It couldn't be a.
Well, it's but it's because he is so focused on it. Like, he's the only one that can think to do it. But again, his suit that he has, he can't move in it at all. So someone would literally have to like truck him in on like a dolly into the cave.
And in one of their tests, he's got 2 friends that are in camouflage hiding in case he falls. They could pick him back up, but they're not in bear suits.
It's that thing you do in middle school where you drop an egg off the side of the building, but you have to create a container that protects the egg.
Yes,
it's basically what you're describing.
that is exactly. Except the reason he came up with the fire retardant paste is because in one of his testings he set the bear suit on fire, because I guess in case bears decided to become.
They had a flint
wielders
steel or something.
Like, there was no reason for it, but like he's like in a burning suit and he's like, I better do something about that. It's like, why? What? In future iterations of the bear suit, he has like mock-ups, like paintings and stuff, and they're like flying and stuff. It's like Iron Man. Like, it's like, what? why does your bear suit need to fly? That's the Ursus Mark VI, man. It's like it's got missiles on it. Yeah.
One of my favorite bits is they were doing one of the tests, and that instead of a log, it was just like a cement block tied to a rope, and the guys were like going to pull it back, and they were pulling it back at different distances to see if he could withstand the impact on it. And then they kept pulling it because he said, he only has this little slit in front of him, and so he doesn't have much field of vision, and so they pulled it up way too high and let it go, and it literally just like knocked him backwards. And it about knocked the air out of him.
I feel like we've answered the question of how he has so many friends. I would sign up to do that.
Yeah. So, there's also an interesting scene where they're in it's like a Whataburger or something, and they're not drinking alcohol. They're just like drinking Cokes and eating hamburgers. And one of these dudes is dressed like a Gene Autry cowboy complete with a guitar, and he starts like singing a song about bears and stuff. And he's like, we used to do this every night, but my wife only lets me go out like every 2 nights now. And we'll do this like 3 a.m. I'm like, you sit in not even a Waffle House and you're not drinking 7-Up to like, and I just kept thinking, I bet they hate this dude and his friends because they were so loud. It's like, oh God.
I think they call the Waffle Houses Tom Hortons up north.
Yeah.
Tim Hortons.
So if you haven't seen Project Grizzly, it's directed by Peter Lynch. I think he did a couple other things, but not a whole lot. Shot it on 16 millimeters, so he could do a lot of handheld shots and stuff. Competent documentary. It's hard to mess this up, I said that nowadays I think it would be much more like a Tiger King, much more sensationalized, and probably get into the lives like I want to know about the cowboy guy,
right?
Where I need an episode on him.
And it probably would have ended up being more scripted and less raw, I think,
Yeah, well, and Troy is obviously performative for the camera, but I think it's no more performative than he would be in front of his friends or any audience.
Right.
I think he's just one of those kind of people that's always on and everything's a big show, like us. Got a real hippie attitude about everything.
We're doing this podcast live from a Tim Hortons right now.
I'm in the Buc-ee's.
Actually, that's not a bad segue into the movie, my first movie, since the
Into the Wild.
Since the most famous scene in it, I guess, is the
whole reason for the movie.
The whole reason for the movie, more or less. Yeah, I guess that's a fair point. So the movie is the one that DiCaprio finally won his Oscar for. It's called The Revenant.
Safe thing to do is track a new course back up online.
Then what we gonna do? Sit out there like a bunch of ducks? You and your half-breed son get to walk on out? I'm talking to you.
The proper thing to do would be to finish him off quick.
He's to be cared for as long as necessary.
I understand.
Get away! Help!
What happened? We did what we had to do. He was buried right.
All I had was my boy, and he took him from me, you understand? He's afraid. He knows how far I came to find him. I ain't afraid to die anymore. I've done it already.
It is an interesting movie. If you've not seen it, I guess, just bottom line up front, I liked it too.
I think if you've seen the Revenant, you don't need to see the Revenant.
It's that's not even funny. That's just bad.
That was amazing.
It stars DiCaprio and Andrew Hardy. It's an 1820s fur trapper mountain man movie. It's based off of a book. DiCaprio plays a man named Hugh Glass, who is a veteran. He's got a half Pawnee son that's with him, whose mother had died. They're with a group of trappers, other fur trappers, and they go through various struggles that ends up sort of dividing the group of men.
Hey, Glass. Is it true what they say about you shooting that lieutenant while you was living with them sandwiches?
Gerald.
21 dead soldiers, more than 40 dead feathernecks, but you and your boy are the only ones to get to walk out alive. It's kind of a miracle, don't you think?
You need to shut up, Fitzgerald.
That what you did? Shot one of your own to save this little dog right here? You know what you want to fight, son? Why? Was you playing with this little boy's mama? Huh?
Fitzgerald!
Did you kill her? Hey, you can quit polishing that rifle when I'm talking to you.
I'm working on it.
You can work on it later when I'm done talking to you. Look at me, Scout.
That's enough!
You're forgetting your place, boy.
As far as I can tell, my place is right here on the smart end of this rifle.
You move along, Fitzgerald.
They have differing opinions about how things should be done and what the proper course of action is to get the furs they've already gathered back to civilization, essentially, to sell them. And they're being dogged by the weather and by the threat of Indian attacks and all these other things. The drama of the movie centers around a seminal event, which is that Hugh Glass's character, DiCaprio, gets mauled by a grizzly bear nearly to death. And it's very graphic and it's very well done and it looks real, I guess, for all intents and purposes. And
that bear also won an Oscar.
Yeah, for best bear. Josh was runner up that year, but
I was the bear.
He survives, and the rest of the trappers are carrying him on a makeshift pallet through the mountains. I forgot the character's name, but Tom Hardy essentially advocates a mercy killing. Like, he's never going to make it. We got to kill him. And then they allude to the fact that he had at some other point saved most or all of them from other calamities, and they all kind of owe him their life. And so several of the men volunteer to stay behind until he dies, basically so he doesn't die alone. They won't kill him, but they'll stay with him. Tom Hardy says, oh, you know what? I'll do that too. And of course, his son stays. And it ends up being two other guys, Tom Hardy and the son. What happens is that as DiCaprio is in and out of consciousness, he's essentially in a coma. Tom Hardy just wants to get out of there. He keeps essentially trying to find ways to secretly kill Leonardo DiCaprio. Things go sideways. They're out in the woods alone, and he ends up killing the son in front of DiCaprio, who's essentially immobilized. Like, he's tied to this pallet, can't move, and he's all beat up from the bear anyway. And the third act of the movie, Tom Hardy absconds with the water and the weapons and the food and leaves DiCaprio there to freeze to death in the woods after having killed his son and throwing him in an open grave. DiCaprio ends up recovering enough to crawl out and then go on a revenge spree to find Tom Hardy and get his rightful vengeance. It becomes a well-executed plan in the end to do that. The climactic end is him tracking this guy down in a very satisfying way, but he doesn't end up ultimately killing him. That happens because one of the tribes that they had been unkind to, I guess you should say, or could say, is Tom Hardy is ultimately killed by one of the Indians that they come across as they're fighting. So,
Native American, sir.
Should have been a bear.
Should have been a bear. That would, I don't know. I don't know if that would have been too much. I mean, it sure would have been
a bear
good
with
irony
a
twist
in a back alley
and a rocket launcher. If you only had that fireproof bear suit.
That's right. It's the bear with a flamethrower, and he's like, "My God, Troy was right." It's his last words.
I'll tell you once again. Don't keep mentioning the name of my script until it's done. Bear with the flamethrower.
I'm building that subconscious demand for it. That's by the time that movie comes out, it'll be everybody will already think, man, that's a great idea. This is a gritty movie. It's got that dark sort of melancholy to it that I think.
Does it have infinite sadness?
It does have infinite sadness, yes. Westerns that are like this, which I guess the chief overarching genre for this would be a form of Western or whatever. It's filmed it almost feels dark like that. I don't know if there was a technique to do it that way, or it feels heavy. The whole movie just feels heavy. And there's a constant sense of foreboding. There's never like hope. Like it's just everything's bad. And the reason I like this one and the reason I chose it within the theme of the nature is just the backdrop throughout most of the film is the cold and the snow and the winter and the starvation and the struggle against that. Especially when he's left for dead, it really becomes a central part of his sort of struggle to survive. And to your point, Josh, obviously I guess he chose to be a trapper, but he didn't choose to be abandoned.
Right. No, I would say that this is accidental.
Yeah.
But I also did not particularly enjoy this film.
Yeah.
I didn't find DiCaprio convincing. He just has too much of a baby face.
Yeah,
to be
a grizzly mountain man.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, you ain't hard.
He's too good looking to do that kind of.
It's not just that. He has even to this day he still has kind of a baby face. He's kind of a pretty boy. And yeah, it's hard to. So there was that, and then
Tom Hardy was good in it though.
Oh yeah, he's good in everything. I felt like there was no stakes because I didn't feel that sense of dread because I was like, Leonardo DiCaprio's not going to die. Like he's just not.
They tore his pretty face up pretty good.
I just didn't feel like there was any real danger for him. And I don't know. It just didn't captivate me. I don't know. It was competently done.
I don't think it's the best thing Leonardo DiCaprio's ever acted in, and I don't think he should have won an Oscar for this particular work. Yeah, it's competently directed. Visually, it was well done. It's hard to do a Western poorly because you've got a lot to work with visually.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
That's out there.
Yeah, I'll retract my statement. It is easy to do a Western poorly, but it is also just as easy to do it well because you have so much to work with. That's what I meant to say. All you got to do is turn the camera toward the mountains and then focus on the right features, right?
It's fairly easy to make them look good.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
I don't know. It just didn't grip me, and I think some of it, I'll admit, is my bias of like.
Do you not like DiCaprio in general? I'm kind of wild toward him.
I'm really ambivalent. I think he's done some great stuff.
I think he happens to be in good movies, but I don't always enjoy him in them.
I think he's a good actor. I think he has range. I don't think he was old enough maybe for this role. I think that I went into it. There was a lot of hype because I saw it after. Yeah. I think after he had won the Oscar for it and stuff. So there's a lot of expectation. So it's easy to be let down. It didn't land. Just didn't, and I can't explain why.
It's one of those movies that you have to see once, but after that, there's nothing really drawing you back to it.
I would agree with that. I wouldn't buy this movie, but
I don't regret watching it. So yeah,
that's a good
so you're right. I don't regret watching it. I kind of begrudge him getting the Oscar for it because I don't think that it was an Oscar-worthy performance.
Especially when they snubbed you that same year.
Yeah, I don't know. So.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those Oscars that he got because he didn't get the previous ones.
Right. It was his turn Oscar, right? That's kind of what I've always.
Right. It was like Denzel on the Training Day. It's like, we should have probably given you this a decade ago. Sorry.
So I was just checking my notes here. So on IMDb, I gave it a 7. So to me, that's a pretty good movie, worth watching, but not worth owning, worth recommending. If there was an 8 or 9 movie to watch instead and you wanted me to pick a movie for you, I would probably pick one of those instead. Right? So that's
what? I think he, This Boy's Life with De Niro. Is that what the name of that movie was? With DiCaprio and De Niro, or like De Niro was like his super mean stepdad, and he was like a Boy Scout. That was an Oscar-worthy performance. It's really good, very difficult film to watch. And he was much younger, obviously, when he filmed that.
I don't remember the movie you're talking about.
Are you sure this is a movie that actually exists, Josh? We do have to ask you that sometimes.
You have great ideas for movies that have never been made.
This Boy's Life. It was 1993. Right. Robert De Niro.
That one has escaped me.
Ellen Barkin was his mom. It's a very good, difficult movie to watch. But I highly recommend it. He is much better in that film than many others.
It was also the film debut of the bear that he'd work with again in The Revenant.
Yes. The bear played his real dad.
Like I said before, I think the bear mauling was like the main marketing thing for this film. Like it was
it's the only thing you'll really remember.
There was some sensationalism around it too.
It was the most horrific thing you've ever seen. It wasn't even the most horrific thing that year in film.
That day.
That minute. I was watching a YouTube simultaneously that blew it out of the water. It was the thing that set the movie up as far as, it was an ILM, they did the effects for it. And
it's kind of like A Day After Tomorrow. They're like, come see Tom Cruise killed over and over again. It's like, I'm in.
And this is the follow-up to the director of Birdman.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a really good movie. And I think that was, at least for me, was a bit of a letdown. Like I kind of, after watching Birdman, I expected something more. Not that this was bad or anything like that, but it's just, it didn't quite go to the heights that like Birdman did.
Yeah. Yeah. Birdman, though, that's like going to be probably his high water mark. I think that's his, his magnum opus.
Yeah.
But yeah, coming from that to The Revenant is like, that's like watching Terminator 2 and then watching like Piranha 2. And going, Jimmy Cameron, I don't know what happened.
All right, Jason, how about you? What's your go-to?
Okay, so my Robert Redford movie is
yeah,
the 2013 film All Is Lost. Now, generally, what we do is we would put like the trailer here, but because there are only like 3 parts of this movie where he speaks,
51 words total is what I read.
There's nothing in the trailer, really. Yeah, so you would just be hearing like the ocean for like 2.5 minutes if I put the trailer here.
He does drop that F-bomb. You could play that.
Probably the best F-bomb put to the film.
Most impactful.
We had to watch it in secret because Adam's grandma told me we couldn't watch it because Robert Redford says a swear.
That's right.
So don't tell her.
I think the script was literally like 37 pages.
Bobby Redford doesn't say swear words.
Bobby Redford is a swear word.
So like the most that you hear is like right at the beginning, and it's him essentially writing a letter to like all the people that he wants to say something to in this moment. And I will put that here because that actually does exist as an excerpt.
13th of July, 4:50 p.m. I'm sorry. I know that means little at this point, but I am. I tried. I think you would all agree that I tried. To be true. To be strong. To be kind. To love. To be right. But I wasn't. And I know you knew this in each of your ways. And I am sorry. All is lost here, except for soul and body. That is what's left of them. And a half-day's ration. It's inexcusable, really. I know that now. How it could have taken this long to admit that, I'm not sure, but it did. I fought till the end. I'm not sure what that is worth, but know that I did. I have always hoped for more for you all. I will miss you. I'm I'm sorry.
You hear that, and then it goes back to 8 days previous. And the entire movie is Robert Redford is on his sailboat by himself. He wakes up the bed at the front of his yacht with water just lapping in. And he gets out, and a container filled with shoes has obviously fallen off of a cargo ship and is smashed into the side of his hull and punctured the side of his hull. What happens is you see Robert Redford is kind of like he's a smart character. Like he figures out how to get this. Like he tries to use a pole to get it off and doesn't work. It's too heavy. So he goes and he gets like the sea anchor and ties it to the container and throws that off, uses the sails to pull himself away the opposite direction of way the anchor is pulling him.
He's imminently
enough to go back.
That's what struck me is that what I loved about the film is he's competent. And so like I would place this against as like the opposite side of the coin of Into the Wild.
Yes.
Because like Into the Wild, that dude didn't know what he was doing. Like throughout this, and that's what's so gripping is like he knows what to do. He knows how to handle these situations, and he still is overcome by them.
It just keeps getting worse.
That
right?
makes for like so like this water is just like lapping in, and he turns the boat around because he realizes I'm probably going to need that sea anchor, and he goes back to get it. And so the boat like lists and more water's coming in, and he's looking and he's not freaking out, and like at every turn. There's stuff like, and he just calmly is like, all right.
The calmness is, so my wife and I watched this together, and she and I both made the same observation, which was that if either of us were alone on this boat and this was happening, there would be a very different script because it would be 4-letter words loudly spoken to ourselves nonstop from the moment that he opens his eyes.
But you also don't know, like
even things that I'm competent about, like getting a flat tire on the side of the road. From the time I hear that pop till the time I get back in the car, I am, kvetching nonstop.
What I like about this film is because, like I said, he is competent, but he's not like overly competent. And like some movies might make him like
he's not too smart. Yeah.
Yeah. His radio and his GPS system is destroyed because of the seawater. And then he pulls out a book and he starts reading it to figure out how to navigate the old fashioned way. Like he doesn't naturally know that. And later on in the movie where he finds a sextant that he has stored away, and he's using that, and he's referring to the book, like he's following the instructions. He doesn't know it all, but he's smart enough to have that information on hand.
And there's lots of like the narrative. It is very much a visual film.
Yes.
And like there's so much built into, because he like the boat